Welcome to the Taproom Exclusive. I am Dean Zarbaugh. I am here at Collision Bend Brewery with Luke Purcell and Ben Northeim, brewers of this great beer. We're on to a dopplebock. Talk a little. I haven't talked on the show yet about a dopplebock. So, what is dopplebock? Where's the name come from? Doppel double, right?
That's true. Yes.
Okay, I did know that. Okay, so it's a double bock.
Correct.
And so, what is a bock style?
So Bock basically is a real dark German lager. In basic terms, that's what it is. Bock beer, there's a lot of there's one particular myth about what Bock beer is, which is I'm gonna myth bust that right now.
All
if
right.
I can borrow that term. Yeah, there we go. So the one that I heard growing up all the time, and I still will hear that. I'm sure that we'll hear that here. We just put this on tap a couple weeks ago, so I'm sure we'll hear this around the tap room if some old timers come in here, that the Bock beer, they come out in springtime because they're cleaning the tanks from the year, and it's all the dredges from the bottom of the tank, and that's what Bock beer is.
What? I've never heard that
Oh,
story.
well, listen closer. Listen closer. So that one was always going around, and that is not what it is, although I would like to know of a brewery that only cleans their tanks once a year, so I don't go there.
Yeah, let's stay away from it.
So, but anyway, so what Bock beer is actually is like kind of when refrigeration wasn't as readily available. Let's say not maybe when it wasn't around at all, but when it wasn't as readily available, this is a lager, and it's a strong lager that needs to mellow out and age. Lager means to age, but it needs a cold storage for a long time. It ferments at cooler temperatures, and it needs cold storage for a long time to get to that optimal flavor. And so it would be brewed in January, which I've heard the story as being said under the sign of Capricorn, which is why you see with the Bock beer names and the dopplebocks or the labels, you always see a goat on it, and on a doppelbock you'll see two.
Interesting.
It goes back to your double thing. So I tend to believe that version of the story, but there's a few others out there if you want to do your research and then, come down here and argue with me. It'd be fun. That's fine. But that's my understanding of what it is. But what it really is just a nice, very, very malt-forward German lager.
Okay. I like malt. I think that
Beer's made of malt, by
yes,
the way.
it, if you did not know that.
Malt and water.
But it's a profile that. So one of the first beers I ever drank was an Elliott Ness. That was one of my absolute first beers.
I'm familiar with that beer.
And I thought you might. And that I've said before that I can't. That's why I harken back to malt a lot, is because that was one of the first beers I ever had, craft beers, and it gave me a real appreciation for malt. And I don't think there's a huge appreciation for malt as there is for hops. And it's really nice to see breweries doing stuff like this, especially for getting you down to the tap room. Profile, you say it's a malt forward lager. What are some flavors, some notes people are going to get off of your guys'? What was the name of it? This one?
We call it the Collisionator.
Nice.
Yeah.
Great name.
Off this beer, I get a lot of dark fruits, like dried cherry notes, raisin, stuff like that is what I get a lot. You're not picking up anything from the hops in this beer. It's just the hops are there mainly just to balance that beer out. But it's 8%, but it's also not.
That does not drink 8%.
It's not. I was just gonna say it's not overwhelmingly like hot alcohol-wise.
That goes to what I was saying about aging too, as well. Cold storage it needs, because if you had tasted this beer when it was first done fermenting, even a couple weeks after, it did taste hot. Yeah,
really?
It really did. Yeah, so that's part of that thing, that it needs that mellowing time. So
Interesting. So I'm still new to learning about the brewing side of things. So is that across the board? Is generally like to get that booziness out? Is that across the styles, or is that specific to like a lager style?
I'd say in a lot of cases, probably maybe not all of them, but stronger beer, even an ale, like a big imperial stout or something like that, I found that more time than a normal ale definitely is beneficial to getting those mellowing out those flavors for sure.
Nice, because like you were saying, like this is 8%, but until you said that, I had no idea.
Right. Yeah, it's dangerous, but it's
but in a good way.
Yeah.
I Ubered here, so I'm fine. But so this is, dopplebocks generally range around 8%. Is that?
Yeah, somewhere in. Actually, it can go. I think as high as 10.
Okay.
10 to 10.5%. So, I think the low end is 7.5%.
Okay.
So, this was just a beer that I enjoy drinking personally, and you don't see on tap anywhere.
Yeah.
So this was just me being selfish because I wanted something to drink here
It's okay.
all the
It's
time.
okay.
So, yeah.
As long as the boss says you can do it.
We pretty much let Ben do anything he wants back here, so it's
That
okay.
must be nice. Must be
Yeah,
nice. Well, hey,
it's not bad.
it's turning out very well. This is I don't get to drink doppelbocks very often,
Right.
like you were saying. So as soon as you said, "Oh, we have a doppelbock," I was like, "Oh, let's do that," because I have not had one in a while, and I'm really enjoying your guys's. It's a clean drinker too. Just I'm surprised at how light it is for the 8%. Like, that's still wrapping my head around that part. What was it about doppelbocks that you like that drew you to say, "Hey, like I really want to do this"?
The first time I ever drank one, I think I bought it because it was so high in alcohol, and I was
Okay.
like, "Well, this will be good," you know.
It'll get me there.
But I came to appreciate the style just based on all the flavors that I was getting out of it. I like those dark fruits, those, that cherry, that raisin, the
Yeah.
fig, anything like that. It's also why I like the stronger Belgian, dark strong ale, stuff
Yeah.
like that. There's just something about a good malty beer that I like personally. So that's
Yeah.
kind of why I wanted to make it.
Well, it's not, you say raisin. I hadn't until you said that. I hadn't tasted that, and then you get a little bit of that. And it really just rounds out the flavor of this. It's a very well-rounded, well-balanced beer. What are, other than the temperature side of it, the cool storage and all that? Is there a hardship to brewing doppelbocks? Is there anything that's kind of harder?
If you talk to some German brewers, we probably did it completely wrong. So there's some traditional methods that are decoction and like boiling of grains and things like this that are you don't necessarily have to do anymore. Although, like I said, if you talk to some German brewers, they're very astringent to their ways, and they stay the way they want to. They don't think any new techniques are worthy. So. We're American, though, so it's okay.
We're gonna try something different.
Yeah, there's different malts that are modified and kilned in different ways that give you some of those flavors, the deep malt flavors that bring out all the fruits and dried fruits and raisins. Everything we're talking about is coming from the malted barley that we use in this. We're not throwing raisins in here.
Yeah, no.
Just to be clear on that. Yeah. So I think. There can be, if you make it so, there can be some tough days, long days in the brew house if you make it so, especially in ours because we're not really set up to do that. Our friend Sean over at Noble Beast does a lot of decoction brewing, which means he has an extra vessel on the side, and he transfers his grain. He has the ability to do that because he set it up that way, which is very cool to do.
Interesting.
And it develops these depths of flavor and these layers of flavor. But I'm blown away by how we got that into this one. How Ben did this with the malt profile that he used. So I love it, and it's been one of my favorite styles for a long time. So there's some of the first brews I loved, and probably was some of the reasons that Ben said because they were stronger.
Yeah.
When I first started getting into drinking craft beer, there wasn't a lot of local breweries around. So we were going to some imports and stuff like that. And one of the one of the most famous doppelbocks around was brewed by monks, and it had this depth flavor. It's Salvatore. No, Salvatore isn't the one. Celebrator.
Yeah.
So all of them end in T-O-R. That's why we're Collisionator. Yeah.
Oh, there you go.
Yeah,
oh,
so all of that. That's
very
kind
cool.
of everyone. Yeah. So
A buddy of mine is a big fan of the Salvinator, the first one you said.
The Salvatore.
Salvatore,
So
yeah.
Salvatore's triple decoction brew. It's an amazing beer. Still
I'm
to
going
this
to tell him
day,
to
it's
come
one of
down
my
and try
favorite
your
beers,
guys'.
but yeah.
Because if he likes that, I think he'd really enjoy your guys'. So I do a segment here on the show. It's called Between Two Hops, named after Between Two Ferns, but the segment is taken from inside the Actors Studio.
Oh, cool.
So this is just a little 10-question questionnaire. You both can answer absolutely.
I can only picture Will Ferrell right now with that like skit that he used to do on that. I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah. That's the inspiration.
Okay.
So what is your guys' favorite style of beer to brew and to drink?
Me personally, I love the lagers, so German lagers. That just to me, that's what I could drink that every day, and I would never be upset.
Yeah.
So,
and to brew?
I'm the complete opposite. I actually love brewing the IPAs, but this is because it's fun to play around with all those different hops and see what you can get out of them. But to drink, yeah, I'm gonna go lagers all day.
Very cool. Luke?
I'm a porter and stout guy first. I always have been that way. I think probably, again, growing up in a time when there wasn't as many choices as there are now.
Mm-hmm.
In Cleveland, Guinness, with the Irish community in Cleveland, Guinness was a big deal, and so I learned to like Guinness. I would say more than maybe I really didn't like it at the beginning, and now I still love that beer. And when I got into brewing beer, that's what I made a lot of, was porters and stouts, and really fell in love with that style. So that's my favorite beer to drink, I would say.
Were you originally getting imported porters? When you were first getting into them?
Sure. Yeah, absolutely, because there wasn't anything around here. And then, thankfully, Great Lakes decided to do the Edmund Fitzgerald, which I know, I'm sure you're aware, I worked there for a long time, but it was my favorite beer before I worked there, during the time, and I will still say it's still my favorite beer. So nice. I'll throw that out there.
There you go. Yeah. And then to actually brew.
My favorite style to brew has always been a real strong Scotch ale. Actually.
Ooh,
yeah, it's
nice.
just really fun for me because
underappreciated style.
It's a little bit different of a brew day, and it takes a lot longer. And the aromas that come from it's a lot like similar to the dopplebock style that we're tasting right now. Very, very caramely, very, very, very malty. But you actually get a lot of that flavor from just boiling and boiling and boiling, caramelizing in the kettle, and I think that's pretty cool. And it's a day of being patient, but it's an enjoyable day for me. For some reason, it's always been one. I learned that techniques early on from some brewers that were teaching me. I don't know. I just liked it. I don't know. I've always liked doing that beer. So
very cool. It's a style I really appreciate. On the opposite end of the spectrum, what's your least favorite style to brew? Something
beer.
that just gets into you.
Anything with rye.
I was going to say either rye beers or smoked beers.
I was talking to...
that's because you don't like smoked beer.
I was talking to Mike over at Masthead, and he was saying, we were talking about using the word rye in a beer. It's like, that's one of the worst words you can use in actually like packaging like a beer. It's like, it's a red rye IPA or something like that. It's like, it turns people off, but it's a good style of rye.
Yeah, they taste. I enjoy drinking them.
Yeah,
but
I'm with you.
To brew with them is a nightmare. It's super gummy and it sticks the mash.
I can only imagine.
Makes for a super long day, and it's not fun.
It's just not a friendly grain for brewing with. No. That's all it is. Wheat's tough to do, but we've learned, and then there's centuries behind wheat and people brewing with wheat, so. There's things you can do to get through that day, and so some brewers might say wheat beer just because it's a little bit longer of a day, but it's their own fault if it is. Really at this point in time, there's things like ways to get through that. So rye, I don't, unless you're just dropping in like a couple grains, like throwing them in by hand and just saying, "Oh, there's rye in there," But it really does offer a cool flavor to a beer, so it's intriguing, and depending on what kind. There's been numerous styles that have been brewed with rye by lots of great brewers, and I've enjoyed many of them. I had a rye porter from Founders Brewing up in Michigan, which was awesome. I love that beer. And there goes my porter thing again, but yeah, that just adds a little spice, as you would imagine, and something about rye with hoppy beers that was really popular for a while. The rye IPAs, I think, was like this. It wasn't that you necessarily tasted the rye to me, but it was this clean bitterness that came out because of something in there. Gotcha. I'm not sure about the science behind that, but that's what I always found in those rye IPAs. I actually enjoyed that style a lot. But yeah, no, to brew them, worst brew days I've ever had. We're
Just
always
a pain
right.
in the ass.
Oh yeah.
What profession other than your own would you like to attempt?
That's a good one.
That's a really good question.
Really good question.
So when I was younger, I always wanted to be a professional baseball player.
Nice.
I was in Cincinnati one time doing a talk about beers, and I forgot where I was, and someone said that's kind of that same question. It's like, what did you want to be when you were growing up? Kind of thing. I was like, I wanted to be a catcher for the Cincinnati Reds, which is true. Like, that's true. What I really thought I was going to be, because I loved Johnny Bench when I was growing up.
All right, yeah.
And I really started cheering down there, like, that's awesome. And I'm like, why are they cheering for me? Oh, my gosh, I'm in Cincinnati. So that's kind of funny.
One time someone asked, we went down to Florida when John Glenn went back to space in '98, and someone asked me on the way, like I got interviewed by like Channel 5 at the airport in Orlando. They're like, what do you want? Do you want to be an astronaut when you grow up? I was like, yeah. And they're like, what do you want? How are you going to do that? I said, bring up my math and science grades.
There you go. Yeah, right.
Like, Ben, if you had to pick
you know what? It's right what you were just saying. When I was a kid, I was still to this day, I've always been fascinated with outer space.
Nice.
Thought it was cool. But I'm also have a slight fear of heights.
I get you.
So
I get you.
I always kind of wanted to be an astronaut, but then I was like, I don't know if I can.
That's really high up.
That's really high.
So I always thought that'd be fun, but
Yeah, absolutely.
but
Dude, I love space
I'll stay
too,
on the
man.
ground and brew beer.
What profession would you not like to attempt?
Brewing beer. Is that just a warning out there to all you people that think it's a great idea? No, I'm just kidding.
I don't think I could do what my wife does, which is like work in a hospital and be around.
I'm a terrible patient, so.
Yeah, I'm a terrible patient too, but blood and guts don't bother me when they're mine.
Yeah,
But when
exactly. Someone else's, get me away.
Yeah, I don't like
Yeah,
it, so she can stick to that, and I'll stay away.
It's to me, there's not a specific one necessarily that I wouldn't like. I mean, that's things like that. The hospital doesn't bother me, but I think anything that you spend the majority of your time at a desk, I think really is what I would say. Anytime we have to sit behind the computer and everything, like I think every profession has to do that a little bit nowadays,
right?
To some extent, but yeah, if you had to be there all day and doing that, that's something I wouldn't want to do.
Absolutely. What hurdles did you personally face, and how have you overcome them? We're getting deep.
Yeah, we are.
Like personal, professional, or
personal, professional hurdles in the.
I'll go right to my beginning of my brewing career. You know, at Great Lakes, there was 8 of us in the brewery, and five of us out of the 8 were brewers, and for some reason they didn't think I was going to be good in the brew house or something, because it took them like a year and a half before I finally even got my first crack at brewing a beer.
Oh wow!
You know, and I was like, I don't know what's going on around here, because obviously was the best brewer in the room,
right?
So I'll go to that. Like, I just kept pressing, and every time that one of the spots opened up, I threw my name in there and went in through the processes, and I think they finally just was like, all right, just put him in the brew house and tell him to shut up. So, but it was a big deal, you know. And as I found out, it's not necessarily like all parts are equal when it comes to brewing, but everybody that gets into it, I think, wants to be in that brew house and be able to call themselves a brewer. So just at least getting to that point, and then was a big deal for me.
Absolutely. Ben?
Oh, I would have to say just finding a career path in general that I actually liked and wanted to stick with.
Okay.
Just from the time I got out of school and sticking with something that I enjoy, that was probably the biggest hurdle.
What'd you major in?
So I went to a technical college and did automotive repair.
Okay.
And I still
more for film.
I still love fixing cars and stuff like that, but not as a career.
Yeah.
And then I just worked a bunch of terrible retail jobs for a long time and didn't really know what I wanted to do. I did some painting work, and so when my buddy showed me brewing, I was like, oh, this is it.
There
like
it is.
I knew within a week after brewing my first beer, I was like, this is what I want to do.
I think that happens with pretty much everybody in this industry. It happens really quick when you know.
Yeah, a lot of times I was just going to say that it's a common story where people knew pretty quickly once they started brewing that that's what they wanted to do, or knew pretty quickly that's not what they wanted to do.
Yeah.
You know, it really is one or the other. A lot of times, I think. I mean, I have known people that have kind of worked at a brewery or kind of got a little bit of the experience and kind of slowly kind of eased into it. But most of the time, it's like people want to be a brewer or they don't.
Right. What was the most interesting trend in craft beer that you saw in 2018?
I think it was the brewed IPA.
Yeah.
It was like
Brewed.
the brewed came along, and it was like, I think Ben alluded to it earlier. We both have kind of the same tastes on that side about the New England style, although we've utilized a lot of the hopping methods from that style.
Mm-hmm.
We don't necessarily like the milkshake part of that,
Right.
or whatever you want to call it.
Lactose sign.
And so when the brute style started popping up, to me, it was, and I'm the same way as Ben, I like a nice dry beer. So, like, to me, that was a little bit more appealing. So I would definitely go with that.
Yeah, I would have to agree just because it was such a, especially when we made ours.
And plus, who thought there was going to be another different kind of IPA? you know?
Right.
Like, how could we think of another
We
one?
maxed it out, but wait.
Wait, there's one more idea.
I read a lot about them when they first started popping up, but there weren't any brewers around here really making them yet. So when we did it, we brewed one with Madcap out in Kent.
Oh, nice.
I used to work with Vince at the Brew Kettle, so we got together and we wanted to do one. So when we made it and we actually got to drink it when it was done, I was like, this is what an IPA should be. You know,
Yeah.
like super dry, but you
Yeah.
get all those hop aromas and flavors without a ton of bitterness.
You got to be careful about how many hops.
Yeah.
You know, if you calculate your hops the normal way, without having that, even that little bit that you usually have in the residual sugar that you usually have in an IPA, even that's really dry, that little bit makes such a difference in the balance of perceived bitterness.
Really?
Like, you got to be really careful. Yeah, like, because you can over bitter it really easily, I would
And
imagine.
we targeted, I think, 20 IBUs.
Okay.
Yeah.
And it probably tasted more like 60,
Wow.
70.
It brings it in because the
there's
sugar's
nothing to hide
balanced.
behind, right? So
That's nuts.
Yeah.
It's a really fun style. If you had to pick your least favorite trend in 2018 that you just didn't,
Anything that has to do with dessert or cake or
yeah,
was
I would,
whatever,
I
like
would say
pastry
any
steps.
sort of those
pastry. Yeah,
stouts,
thank you. Yeah, anything
think
for
we're-
me, it's just I get it. I do
yeah,
get it.
there's a market for
It's
it for
fun.
sure.
For people, and they like to try different things.
Absolutely.
But yeah, for me, no thanks.
Yeah, I'm the same exact way on that
I
one.
hear you. Absolutely, nothing against it. It's just
Right.
that's
It's not for
it's
me.
just not.
Right.
If we all like the same kind of thing, there'd only be one style.
Exactly.
What is one piece of practical advice you would give someone starting out in this industry?
Don't.
Seems to be the common thing.
Yeah.
Education, just.
Yeah,
don't-
there's so much opportunity now.
That's where it's at.
You know, and for me, like, I say this a lot to people when they're asking about the industry. For someone that's been around for a little while, it's amazing the quality standards now compared to when I started. Quality levels, your expectations should be high. Going into any brew pub, brewery, buying anything off the shelf, your expectations should be high because the opportunity and information is just there. It really is, and there's no excuse. There's no excuse to, we're all going to make our styles in our own, the way we interpret them and everything like that. And not everyone's going to like the way we do it, or not everyone's going to like the way another brewery does
Right.
it. And that's okay, as long as you're going to be like, as long as you're putting out the top quality, you're following best practice and doing it. And there's no excuse not to follow best practice.
Absolutely.
There's no excuse not to get educated on it. The opportunity is there now. It's not like 25 years ago when it was like a bunch of us just like, let's try this next. Let's try this next. And why do you think this is happening? And, the opportunity for education is there. So take advantage of it is what I would tell everybody.
I would agree, and don't let all your friends convince you that you're making the best beer in the world
Yeah.
at home, because you're probably not.
Yeah. Get an unbiased opinion.
Right.
If you could send a message to yourself 10 years ago, what would you tell the younger you?
Don't give up.
That's
For
good
real,
advice.
yeah.
Good
Yeah.
advice.
Yeah, 10 years?
10 years.
Can I go back farther?
If you want to.
No, I'm just kidding. I'll go by the rules. 10 years ago? Oh, I would probably say, I don't know. 10 years ago, I was feeling pretty good about everything 10 years ago. I'd probably say maybe go branch out on your own a little bit sooner. Don't
Okay.
be afraid. Don't be afraid to do it.
Absolutely. Yeah, it's got to be, it's a risk jumping out on your own.
Yeah.
I can only imagine. More power to you for doing it, man.
Yeah.
Last question. What or who has been the biggest influence in your brewing career?
Ooh, that's tricky because my boss is sitting right
That's awesome.
Obviously, my brewing career has not been that long, so between Luke here and Jack Keppert from the Brew Kettle, those two for sure.
He just put my name in because I'm sitting next to him. So that's a shout out to Jack.
Don't tell anybody.
I could put Jack on that list. Actually, he's awesome. Andy Tavikram, easy. I mean, there's
Andy's
tons.
such a nice dude.
There's tons and tons and tons of them, but Andy Tavikram, he gave me a chance. He hired me. I homebrewed with him. After I had only been homebrewing for a few months, actually, just random chance, met him through one of his neighbors.
Oh wow!
And he was so cool. He's like, come. He's like, tell him to come over. I didn't even meet him, actually. I asked the guy, like, can I meet him? And he's like, he said to just come over Saturday. They're brewing in the basement. And I was like, okay. And really, that's what changed my life. So, and everything else he did after that too. I love the way he managed us. I love the way he gave us a chance to properly use our new ideas, rather than just like, he didn't let us do whatever we wanted to, but as long as it was properly planned out and presented to him, he let us experiment and do things, and it was awesome. He's an awesome guy. So
very cool. Going back to the Doppelbock real quick before we head out, this is an exclusive to the tap room. You have to come down here to get it, so get down here, 1250 Old River Road. What else did you want to get out about the Doppelbock before we head out?
Try it before it's gone, because it's
it was a small batch.
This is a very small batch. There's probably only going to be about 7 or 8 kegs of it available.
All right.
Until I decide to brew it again. But
absolutely.
So yeah, get down here and try it out before it's gone.
Very cool. Luke and Ben, thank you so much for your time. I really appreciate you taking the time out. I know you were brewing today, for taking the time to do this. And tune in next week for another new episode of the Taproom Exclusive.